Hey everybody, this is a Canadian Wolf bringing you a story from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. It's entitled, I Must Provide Detailed Information About My Doctor's Appointment to Get Approved for Paid Time Off. Are you absolutely sure? Well, if you say so. Let's get to it, Pack. Hey everyone, just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you to all the new subscribers. Thanks for helping us grow the channel. If you haven't already done so, here's a great opportunity to help us grow more by clicking on the subscribe button below. Your help in attaining our goal of 1,000 subscribers is truly appreciated. Now on to the story. A few years ago, I worked in an office with some pretty strange and crappy rules. One such rules was that while we could apply personal paid time off for any reason, management needed a detailed summary of the reason before they would approve. This resulted in several instances of coworkers applying for PTO for things like funerals and birthdays and being told the current project deadline is more important than your niece's birthday. Or, do you really need to attend your mother's cousin's funeral? That doesn't sound pressing. It was a really toxic system that resulted in some turnover from coworkers who were sick of being held hostage over paid time off. Furthermore, both the department manager and the HR manager needed to sign off on the PTO request, which resulted in some frustrating situations where one approved but the other did not. It did not help that the HR manager was a duck. Pretty much the only time you could expect to be approved was for court dates and important medical appointments. But you still needed to provide details, even if it happened to be a very personal medical or legal situation. This does not strike me as legal, but sadly, this isn't the first time I've run into this working in Texas. One more bit of context. My department manager was also a jerk. Without going into too much detail, he was a power-tripping sloth who liked to harass women, like me. Let's call him Jerk and the HR manager Duck. We all hated both of them. On to the malicious compliance. I had an important appointment with my psychiatrist coming up. My meds for anxiety and PTSD were not cutting the mustard anymore, and I was in a bad place mentally. I needed a med adjustment, so I took the soonest appointment available. Work would have to cope with a couple of hours without me. I submitted my PTO request to Jerk and Duck for approval. Given the intensely personal nature of the appointment, I left the details sparse. I was rejected. Both Jerk and Duck said in an email that I needed to give details about my appointment in accordance with company policy. Jerk had the nerve to call me into his office and chide me over my unacceptably terse PTO request. You know the rules. Why would you waste my time with such a brief request? You know I can't approve this, etc. I was pissed. But as I stood in my cubicle, it dawned on me that I could get back at Jerk and Duck merely by complying with their own rules. I formulated a plan. I sent an email to Duck and CC'd Jerk. Always cover your butts, folks. I said, are you sure you need the details of my appointment? Are you positive? It's really personal. Both Duck and Jerk said yes, we need the details of your PTO circumstances. You know the rules. I replied that it's very private. Are you sure I need to talk about it? We sent some emails back and forth until I was sure I had a solid paper trail. Then I decided, well, if they really need my personal medical details, which I still think is legal, but whatever, then I suppose I better give it to them. I submitted a new PTO request with all the relevant information. That I was going to see my psychiatrist for an urgent appointment. I needed to be seen at the earliest possible time because I was having thoughts of hurting myself, because I have PTSD from being raped in foster care. I threw in some details about what my foster father did to me, how I went numb and used drugs to cope, how I was hospitalized as a teenager for a suicide attempt. I also screenshotted and emailed my request to a few of the higher-ups, saying my previous request was insufficient, so I wanted to make sure I got it right this time. I submitted it. There were no snippy emails this time, only approved appearing in green text to my request in the system maybe 4 minutes after I submitted it. I blissfully went about my day, happy to have my PTO. Curiously, neither Jerk nor Duck emerged from their offices. The fallout. When I showed up for work at 8 the following day, I was immediately called into the VP's office. One of the higher managers and a woman that I recognized from legal were also present. VP politely asked me to sit and kindly explain the grotesque email I had sent out yesterday. He was a polite but rather out-of-touch older gentleman, so I made myself clear. I needed PTO for a very personal doctor's appointment, and my previous request was denied by both Jerk and Duck for being too brief, and Jerk even called me into his office to complain about my wasting his time. I didn't want to be rejected again, so I made sure my request was as detailed as possible. I also passed it on to management to verify that the level of detail was up to snuff when it came to corporate guidelines. And yes, I do have PTSD. It's all true, and they can reference my ADA paperwork in HR for more information. VP asked me a couple more brief questions. He then apologized for the hassle, said I was being credited some extra PTO for my trouble, and that the company would be reviewing its approach to the PTO approval process. I was then dismissed back to my desk. I received written apologies from Jerk and Duck that very morning, hand-delivered by a tense and rather petrified Jerk. I think legal put him up to it. Both Jerk and Duck went out of their way to avoid me for the remainder of my time at the company, which was a blessing. The few times we were forced to interact, they spoke very quickly and looked desperate to end the conversation. I guess my PTO request was a little too intense for them. Whatever the case, it was the end of Jerk's little power trips, at least with me personally. Also, that same morning, we received a company-wide email marked as important. There was a change in the PTO policy. Requests with regards to medical and other sensitive reasons no longer required detailed explanations, effective immediately. Bonus. One of my friends in HR, well, not really a friend, but a woman who liked to discuss crocheting with me at the water cooler, showed me an internal email from Duck to all HR staff. Every PTO request from me personally was to be approved immediately and without question. I tested this later that summer by requesting a day off to watch Netflix. That's specifically what I put in the request field. I planned on quitting soon, so I was in a flippant mood. It was approved immediately. I think they had me flagged in their system. Truth be told, I could have probably taken a whole month off and gotten paid for it, but I didn't push my luck. I left the company for a much more tolerable, less toxic, higher-paying job about 6 months later. And yes, my appointment went well. I'm doing better now. I started attending a trauma support group, met my significant other, and I've been able to reduce the dose of one of my meds. Wow, how dense can Jerk and Duck be? Clearly, the company policy, even though likely vaguely written, doesn't require someone to disclose such personal information. A simple request for paid time off for medical appointment, yes, that void of details, should be all that is required. I could see, since it is paid time off, requesting a doctor's note to prove the legitimacy of the request. But to demand more details than just a medical appointment is just wrong in my opinion, and I agree with OP, likely illegal in most places. Glad to hear that the company took immediate and serious actions to remedy this for future requests, and compensated OP a bit for what she had to endure. I know up here in Canada, that would not have ended well for Jerk or Duck, and I hope they got more than just a slap on their hand, referring to the likely forced apology letters. If I was OP though, I would have immediately went to upper management relating to the PTO policy, as I would never want to divulge that kind of private information to anyone who really didn't need to know. On another note, I am glad that OP is now working somewhere else and received the help she needed to get her life in balance. Keep going to the support group and working on balancing your meds, hopefully one day not really needing them. And I am also glad to hear of you finding your significant other. Well, everyone, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed this story. If so, make sure to hit that like button and go give the author an upvote on Reddit. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you know when my next video comes out. This is the Canadian Wolf saying, stay wild.